David and Michael had been friends since they were little boys. They grew up together in Lagos, Nigeria, went to the same schools, and even started a business together. Their friendship was like a brotherhood, and everyone who knew them admired their bond. Michael was even David's best man at his wedding to Sarah, a beautiful and loving woman who seemed perfect for David. Together, David and Sarah had two wonderful children, Emily and Daniel, who were the joy of David's life. David loved his family deeply. Every day, he worked hard to provide for them and spent his weekends playing with Emily and Daniel. People often complimented him on how close he was to his kids. But something strange happened one Saturday night at a party that shook David to his core. It was Michael's birthday, and David had gone to celebrate with him. The room was alive with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. David had a glass of wine in his hand and was chatting with a group of friends when an old classmate of theirs, Johnson, stumbled toward them. Johnson was clearly drunk, and his words were slurred as he spoke. "David, my guy," Johnson said, swaying on his feet, "you and Michael are like twins. Always together, doing everything together." David laughed and nodded. "That's right. We've been like this since we were kids." Johnson grinned mischievously. "Even your children look like him. Can't you see the resemblance? It's like Michael is their father or something." The room went silent. Everyone stared at Johnson, unsure whether to laugh or scold him. David chuckled nervously, but his stomach tightened. "You've had too much to drink, Johnson. Go sit down." Johnson laughed loudly and waved his hand dismissively. "I'm just joking. Relax, David. But seriously, look at them closely." Though David tried to brush off the comment, it stuck in his mind. That night, as he drove home, he couldn't stop thinking about what Johnson had said. His children? Look like Michael? Was it just a drunken joke, or could there be some truth to it? When he got home, Sarah was already asleep, and the kids were in bed. David stood in the living room, staring at a picture of his family on the wall. His eyes wandered to Emily and Daniel's faces. They had always seemed to have Sarah's features, but now he noticed something he hadn't before. Daniel's nose was a little like Michael's, and Emily's smile was almost identical to his best friend's. David shook his head. "Stop it," he muttered to himself. "This is nonsense." But the doubt had already taken root. Over the next few weeks, David began to see things he hadn't noticed before. Michael was always around, sometimes even when David wasn't home. He helped Sarah fix things in the house, played with the kids, and even brought them gifts. At first, David thought it was just Michael being the caring uncle he had always been. But now, every interaction between Michael and Sarah seemed suspicious. One evening, David came home early from work. As he approached the house, he heard laughter from inside. Peeking through the window, he saw Sarah and Michael sitting on the couch, talking and laughing like old friends. Michael reached out and touched Sarah's hand briefly, and she didn't pull away. David felt his heart drop. That night, David couldn't sleep. His mind was racing with questions. Were Johnson's drunken words just a joke, or had he unknowingly uncovered a terrible secret? David decided he needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next day, while Sarah was out, David secretly collected hairbrushes from Emily and Daniel and took them to a DNA testing center. He told himself he was overreacting, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The days leading up to the test results were the longest of David's life. Every time he looked at his children, his heart ached. What if they weren't his? What would he do? Could he still love them the same way? And Sarah, had she betrayed him? Michael, as always, was cheerful and helpful, oblivious to the storm brewing inside David. Sarah, too, acted normal, going about her day as if nothing was wrong. David felt like he was living in a nightmare, waiting for it to end. Finally, the call came. David's hand shook as he answered the phone. The voice on the other end told him the results were ready. David's heart pounded as he listened. "Mr. David, I'm sorry to inform you that..." The voice trailed off as David's world began to spin. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The results confirmed his worst fear: neither Emily nor Daniel was his biological child. David sat in his car outside the testing center, gripping the steering wheel as tears streamed down his face. His mind raced with questions. How could Sarah do this to him? And Michael, his best friend, his brother, how could he betray him in such a cruel way? David's thoughts turned dark. He felt anger rising in him like a storm. He wanted answers, but more than that, he wanted justice. But David knew he couldn't confront them without a plan. He needed to know the full story, how long this had been going on, and why they had kept it from him. David decided to play along, pretending everything was normal while he dug deeper into the lies that had destroyed his family. As David drove home, his phone buzzed. It was Michael, calling as usual to check in. David stared at the screen, his blood boiling. "Hey, David! How's it going?" Michael's voice was cheerful. David forced himself to speak calmly. "I'm good, Michael. Just on my way home. Let's meet tomorrow. I need to talk to you about something important." Michael paused. "Sure, no problem. Is everything okay?" David smiled bitterly. "Oh, everything's just fine." But deep down, David knew this was only the beginning of uncovering a secret that would change his life forever. Don't miss the part 2. It's going to be explosive. Stay tuned and make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you're the first to watch what happens next.